Not anymore, it's fixed.
So then we go back in, they get 20. So I said,
Okay, got about 30 seconds, everybody,
so. But city paid $10,000 to do the work for us. That's good. Yeah.
Five seconds here, everybody, so if you want to get ready here. And let's go. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City School Board of Education meeting. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Swisher, may I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Davis?
Here,
Mr. Moats?
Here.
Mrs. Oberlin? Here. Mr. Bakel?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mr. White?
Present. At this time, we will have public presentations and comments, and we have one on the agenda. Mr. Morton, going to...
I'd like to introduce Mr. Manns, our sophomore counselor. He's going to introduce one of our students, Griffin Combs, and tell us about his accomplishments, and then we can get to ask Griffin about maybe what came out of this accomplishment. So, Mr. Manns, you have the floor.
Okay. Okay, so Griffin participated in the Americanism and Government Test Program, and we run this every fall, but we've never had anyone go as far as he is going next week. Okay, so we had this program since 1936, and it's open to students in grades 10, 11, and 12. There's a 50-question test that he took, and then they use an essay as a tiebreaker. So it's a combination of true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. And interestingly about this program, the students themselves don't advance in the competition, their test paper does. So it's designed not to have a student compete against each other, it's designed that their knowledge would advance. So he was tested on the following areas: the U.S. flag, the Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution, state and county government, city government, township government, village government, and school district government. If any of us in this room would take this test, it would be very difficult. I'm a counselor now, don't do a lot of grading anymore, which I'm glad of, but I do grade this test. And usually when I go through /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// willing to miss 20, 30, 40 of them. It's that difficult of a test. I was grading this young man's test and I wasn't making slashes. And I got done grading his test and he missed a grand total of 4, which is phenomenal. I'm like, we've got something here, okay? So the questions are on current and topical events. Anyway, 65,000 students on average participate within the state of Ohio. There's a number of judging levels at the post level, the county level, the district level. So then it's narrowed down eventually to 84 district winners out of the 65,000. He made that cut. And then the winning test papers go to a state judging committee for this program. And from that field of 84 district winners, they select 18. This young man is one of those 18 out of 65,000. So they take 3 males and 3 females each from grades 12, 11, and 10. And so he gets a 5-day, next week, all expenses paid trip to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C. They're going to have a charter bus, and the highlight of the trip is to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns in Arlington National Cemetery. So 2 people, we were talking before I got up here, I guess they randomly select. which to get to Layla Reef. And I watched a YouTube video of it today. It's rather cool. Those guys clicking their heels, etc. So, places that he's going to visit: Gettysburg, at least where they visited last year, Gettysburg, Andrews Air Force Base, White House, National Archives, World War II, Vietnam, Lincoln, Korean memorials, Air Force, Iwo Jima, Pentagon, U.S. Capitol, and the list goes on. There's like 30 places he gets to visit. All expenses paid, meals, overnight. He's in an elite team, and he's from Defiance City Schools. He's one of our own sophomores. You have Griffin Combs.
That trip sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
That's great.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Does mom get to go with, or no?
No, she
She'll
gets
be
a
good.
5-day vacation. Sorry, Griff.
He'll be good.
Okay, thanks.
So I just was gonna ask you, were you given a topic for your essay or?
Yes, it was about government and how should the age of someone in a position be important.
He also took initiative. There was a study guide that they passed out that students could take advantage of heading into this program, and he took that seriously, but there's a lot up there. I'm impressed. So.
Wow.
Mr. Durger, will you excuse his absences next week?
Yes,
All
he
right.
will be exempt. He'll be exempt.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Congratulations, Griffin. We really appreciate you taking the time. Mom, thank you for bringing him. All right.
I have, we have to vote on this first, so I have, would like to make a motion, to, the Board of Education of Defiance City Schools recognize Griffin Combs for his excellent in scholarship of the American Legion 50-question essay. Of roughly 65 students, Griffin is one of the top 3 males in the 10th grade. So could I have a motion?
I'll
Chris?
second.
Charlie, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Or I guess we gotta have a roll call on that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Modes?
Yes.
Mrs. Everlin?
Yes.
Mr. Bakel?
Yes.
Mr. Wong?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. I'd like to present you guys this certificate, and we greatly have a great time at Washington DC. All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. All right. And you can go. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. But you're welcome to stay. It's always fun.
Congratulations, Griffin. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you for coming.
Any other public presentation? Seeing none, we will move on to the treasurer's discussion items.
My first discussion item is the financials from January of 2025. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial reports that were presented?
No?
Next thing I have is Governor DeWine's biennial budget update. Mr. Morton and I were talking, and we think it's important to just give you guys a broad overview of what's happening in that budget and how it may or may not impact the school. So from a financial point, what's happening is that they are phasing in the fair school funding formula in the percentages that they said that they would. It's at 66% now. It goes to 88 and then to 100. So that's good for us. But what they're not doing is increasing what they call the base cost. So there's a base cost per student, and I have that forecast to increase 4% in this biennium and the next biennium. So even though there's a decrease in what I thought was funding, we're actually not getting a total decrease in funding. Is that correctly?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Say it again.
Yeah,
Say
so
it again, yes.
we're not getting less money. We're just getting less money than I thought.
Does that make sense? Because the way the law was written for the Fair School Funding Plan, for the Ohio School Funding Plan, was that as this was phased in over 6 years, each year the base cost would change. They started it, they raised it from 2018 to 2022 a year ago. And now they said they would phase it in at 23, 24, 25 as they move through the biennium. So when Cheryl forecasts, she forecasts based upon that. Well, in the biennial budget, it's forecasted to not change from a base cost fiscal year 22. So that changes what we forecasted moving forward will significantly be different. But we're not getting less money
From the state.
on the base cost than we have received. Does that make sense? That's a different way of saying it, I guess.
If you go down, there is an example under executive content. I put under executive content just because it's proposed, it's not in law yet. So that's the effect that you'll see under unrestricted and restricted aid if it goes through as presented. There are a lot more changes that are going to affect school districts. If you look at the report that was put out by Dr. Fleeter, you can see that traditional districts' foundation funding formula was the only funding formula that took a cut. Vouchers, community schools, STEM schools, JVSs all got an increase in funding, and traditional schools got a decrease. They're talking about expanding the voucher program even more than what they currently have. I was at a meeting, which actually Mr. Morton was scheduled to go to but couldn't attend.
So Mr. Switcher graciously attended in my place.
Kicking and screaming, I attended. With a couple of legislators, it was Representative Hoop,
Klopfenstein.
and
It was somebody out of the Lima land.
yeah. And even during those conversations that we had with them, it was interesting what they did or didn't know about school funding. So, we talked to them about the inputs, and they basically told us it would cost $1.8 billion to move us to fiscal year 25 inputs. But then we also had a conversation about inflation, how inflation is causing other legislation like 920 not to work. And that's the rollback on the 20 mil with the 20 mil floor. So we're like, in one sentence, you're saying that you want to change this aspect of the money that we receive because of inflation, but yet over here you're telling us that you can't afford to give us that inflationary factor on the money that we receive so that we can function as a school district. So it was a lot of good conversations back and forth with the legislators on some topics that I don't feel like they fully understood the school district's perspective of. So we're hoping that those conversations continue as this goes through the legislative process. But we did want to give you kind of a heads up because of it being such I consider a significant change from what was forecast to what we may or may not realize. I don't think we're going to see a change in the base cost. If we do, it might be the fiscal year 23. Maybe, but we will not see 25. So, there are a lot of other changes that Mr. Morton has to deal with that were talked about at this meeting as well. Because that's the other thing, it's like they're putting all these different mandates on us and changing how we can spend money and how we can, serve our kids. And they're not doing that with anybody else, just the traditional school districts,
Right.
but we're the ones getting the cut in funding.
Yeah,
So-
I would say, so I
Is the
had,
increase in vouchers?
Partly.
yeah,
And the thing of it is, and this is what we asked them to look at, is they talked about, the reason that the voucher program is expanding is because there were so many more scholarships given than they thought. So that means it's working. People are taking the vouchers. And what we asked them to do was to go back and look at those numbers to see if those truly are traditional district school children leaving a traditional district to go to a different school, or if that's the private student that never attended our school that just now gets his tuition paid by a voucher in a private school.
and that's what it's, and don't quote me on the percentage, but it's something like 1,200% increase on the vouchers based upon that were not from low performing poverty based schools, which is what the voucher system was originally designed for.
So we ask them, when you're gonna make these statements in public and you're gonna tell people that, that e-choice is working and that people are having a choice of where to send their students, they're not changing where the students attended, they're simply not paying as much. So we ask for a comparison of those.
Yeah, in Beth Hensha, again, I was at one meeting, Beth Hensha attended another meeting for me, Cheryl attended another meeting for me.
I was a busy guy one day.
Yeah, and there were, in the budget, there are about 3 single-spaced pages of changes that are slipped into the budget. For example, this may seem trivial, but the amount of test questions that would be released would go from 40% to 20%. They would only release 20% of the questions for us to look at so that we can give to our teachers to teach them how to write questions like that, ask questions regarding that, looking at the content, changing the number of hours at which a child can be considered a truant, taking the word truant out of law. What I would say are not budgetary items, but have a significant impact on school. A lot of that gets put in there based on committee. It's in-house finance now. They'll look at it. They'll slip in what they want. Senate will slip in what they want. And remember, we have a supermajority. There are things that are not going to go away. Increased voucher funding is not going to go away. It will not go away. I'll say it again. It will not go away. It will continue to increase. It will be universal across the state. The only thing I ask you to do is go read about vouchers and what it did to public education in states that have universal vouchers and what the public school districts are faced with. What scares me more than anything is legislation that can get put in there about millage and the 20 mil floor and how that would have an impact on us significantly.
And
So-
maybe that language
Currently
currently is
not.
not in the budget
Mhm.
bill, but because of the budget bill, they're talking about other legislation that would
Correct.
affect the 20 mil floor, which would have a significant impact on our district because of the fact that we have continuing levies on property tax for our fixed rate levies, and we're rolled back to what would be like a little bit over 11 mils is what we effectively collect, but they roll that up to 20 mils because that's the minimum we can collect.
That's the law right now.
That's the law. If they do away with that law and we could potentially lose up to 9 mils. So they're aware. I sent an email to Representative Hoops because he was the one talking about introducing that legislation, and that he talked about that's because of valuation changes and everybody who got a tax bill in the last year where they saw that their home values went up 20-30%. Constituents are calling down to their representatives saying, we can't afford this. You're causing me to have to sell my house. I can't pay these taxes. And so they're looking at ways to fix that, but what they need to understand that on the other side of that, you can't take away the inflationary factors in the formula and then say that you're gonna fix this for somebody else by recognizing the inflationary factors. So it's gonna be a long conversation, and one of the things I thought was interesting was there's a clause in there that talks about, like, we went to what we call CEP, where everybody's free.
The lunch program,
The lunch program.
community eligibility
Free, yeah.
provision.
So there's a thing in there basically saying that if you are 25% or higher economically disadvantaged, you must go to CEP. Unless there's a financial hardship
On the district,
on the district. So,
meaning the district would lose the full pay, the 75% of the full pay would cause the cafeteria to
not
lose
function,
money, yeah.
not be able to function. So there's just a lot in there that I feel like is, kind of handicapping us to be able to function in a way that they want us to function so that we can compete with the people who are taking vouchers and going to private schools. We ask that the regulations that are put on traditional school districts be put on the same school districts that receive
That is-
public funds.
So that is the angle that our Superintendent's Association, an organization, it's a coalition of rural schools and Appalachian schools. We have joined that coalition, and the avenue that we go with that in lobbying, and that's what it is. We pay for lobbying services. That is what my dues to my superintendent's organization. I get continuing education, I learn a lot, don't get me wrong, but a majority of our dues goes to government relations and a lobbying specialist. And it's, hey, if you're gonna audit public schools for public money, then you need to audit private schools that get public money as well. If we have to take the state test and special ed kids count, then they should have to take, and they should have to count. And it's, so that's, we're trying to at least, if they're not gonna change their mind on how they fund, we at least want to compare apples to apples. Now, the downside is when you are a private school, you get to select who you want to attend your school. You don't have, and there can be no criteria. Nope, don't want you. Sorry. We're public. Our doors are open and you can come in and we'll take you and be happy all about it. So, but there's some things that we can do. This is not doom and gloom. I want to make
Right.
that yet is it not doom and gloom?
Yeah, I think the takeaway that we want you to have is, kind of listen to what you hear out there.
Yeah.
Talk to other, board members if you have that opportunity. Especially if you sit on other boards and how it's affecting them. And just, be aware of what's happening so that when moving forward, if we have to go into like an advocacy role,
Mm-hmm.
that you're aware of where we are and what we're doing.
And I think if we have to get into that role, we should develop a communication plan that we all would look at and say, and we can't talk about everybody, we gotta talk about us and how it impacts us. And, calling representatives' offices, emailing senators' offices, et cetera, and just letting them know decisions that you make impact, your constituents locally, and here's how it does so. Just so to give them the opportunity to see it from a different perspective. So
I'm just curious, do they understand that the inequity of what they're doing with who they want to serve and who they don't want to serve? Do they understand the discrepancies of what they put on public schools versus what they're not going to do to?
I would like to say yes, they do understand and they don't care. Because the population that they serve, the constituents that they represent in their districts is all they care about, and that's what people tell them. If you live in a large metropolitan area, Kathy, I'll use Columbus, I'm most familiar with it. There are probably 25 private or parochial schools that you have the option to attend, no matter where you live in the $1.8 million metropolitan area of the city of Columbus. And the rep that represents that area, he wants to be reelected. That's his goal. So he's gonna do what the majority of the people in his area say. Then what happens, you get into the House of Representatives, and if you're not aligned with party lines, so to speak, or you're not aligned with this guy that asked you to co-sponsor, well, then he's not going to fundraise for you because they can't fundraise for themselves per se. They fundraise and give it to each other. So it's this political shell game that they do and sponsor each other. If not, they get ostracized by the party and then they don't get reelected. That is essentially how politics works in the United States of America. Griffin should have written that in his paper.
So they're working for themselves, not for the people.
They would never say that.
I'm saying that.
Yeah,
They're working
yeah,
for themselves and
yeah,
not for the people.
Yeah.
Is what I hear you say.
They, and I can confidently say, in our area, they will listen. However, sometimes this happens to them when they try and take action on it. They have no leg to stand on because they're standing by themselves. So,
I think we should invite Roy Kloppenstein in on testing day and have him come in and see what happens on testing day.
Yeah.
And see how everybody does that. And I think they should do that at Ayersville and Tenora and let them see how we do tests. How we have to take all these kids and do tests every day for a week straight.
actually, I think it would be even better if I took him to the bus garage at 5:30 in the morning when our employees are down there starting their buses and pre-checking them and cleaning the windows and getting on the bus and it's 9 degrees outside and then going picking up kids and waiting on parents to get them out the doors and, and delivering them safely and dealing with all that. That would be more of an education than anything else. You know what I mean? I mean, to your point.
Disagree, but I think that's what, we need to educate our representatives understand what we do.
It's no
every
different
day.
than anyone else. Think of your knowledge of a school district and how it runs prior to being on a school board versus being on a school board. It's significantly different. We all have experience of attending school, and that is the vast majority of the public's knowledge of school. And if they had a great experience, they love it. If they didn't, they don't like it. And we have, it used to be, and now we're in an anti-tax mode. If you listen to the modes out there, well, let's get, or the television ads and what's happening around the country, let's get rid of sales tax, let's get rid of property tax, let's get rid of income tax. That's how we're all funded. So, again, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of saber rattling, but in the end, here's what we'll do. We'll do best with what we have to do it with, and we'll do it better than anyone else. That's what I believe, so.
So, just be aware, and I'm sure we'll have more updates on that as it progresses through.
And what Cheryl,
Legislation.
put on, attached for you, under the public content and the administrative content is really a really good snapshot. This was done by an outside agency, not affiliated with the treasurers or the superintendents or the state at all. They analyzed it, and it's really good. So if you get an opportunity to review it, it would be good for you.
Any other questions on that? Next thing we have is the initial program cost for next year for the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center for special education cost. You can see under executive content what the current bill is. You can see that we're looking at a decrease and why that decrease is factored in. So that's a management level decision to do that Mr. Morton will make. But those numbers are based on those assumptions. So.
And it boils down to having, we met with the entire team at the ESC and the preschool director that oversees it for the entire Fort County area. And we have a 5th classroom that has 9 students in it all day versus taking, how many, Beth?
It was, the full day has 16, but the way that our AM and PMs are split, we do have one PM session that has 9 students.
We have one section that has 9, and we can take the 16 students in the all day and disperse them between the 4 other classrooms, and it saves 5% on our ESC bill.
Next thing is section 125 plan document. That is simply an update of the plan document based on the reimbursement changes that are in law, and you can see those under public comment. I have one budget objective for 2nd grade camp under the consent agenda. And finally, I wanted to let you know that our audit was released. You can find that on the Auditor of State's webpage. The only non-compliant citation that we have is not filing GAP, and we still, for one more year, it'll be our 5th year in a row, we got the 4 out of 4 stars for transparency. Good for you.
Good job.
That's all I got.
All right, well then let's move on down to the treasurer's action items. 4.1, the financials, approved January 25. Do I have a motion? Michael?
I'll second.
Kathy?
In stereo.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Bakel?
Yes.
Mr. Moats?
Abstain.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Moving on down to 4.2, the Northwest Ohio Educational Services estimated cost for school year 26.
I'm going 4.2.
Second. Charlie, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Moats?
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yeah.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And final one on treasurer's action items, 4.3, the 125 document plan. Michael?
Second.
Second, Kathy. Does anybody have any more discussion? None. Roll call.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Moats?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And we'll move on down to the superintendent's discussion items. Mr. Morton.
No,
you are up.
fantastic. A few upcoming dates, starting tomorrow night through Sunday. The high school musical department is putting on their spring musical. And your courtesy card, if you recall, gets you and a guest into that. It begins at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Our kindergartners, we're going to start that registration on March 1st, and If you ever want to see a really interesting day, go to kindergarten registration. I tried it once, okay? We have the high school band concert at the auditorium on the 3rd, and we're back to having dark mornings and light evenings on March 9th with daylight savings. Then on Monday and Tuesday of March 11 and 12, or Tuesday and Wednesday of March 11 and 12, the DECA, our DECA students head for the DECA state competition. That's what that is. We're back here on the 12th, and band choir night of music at DES from 6:30 to 7:30 on the 13th. Band is at contest at Southview on the 14th. The choir is at contest on the 15th at Southview. And the elementary school music program is at 6 o'clock on the 19th. And Friday the 21st is the end of the 3rd grading period, and everybody has a welcome break. Then spring break follows after that. So a lot going on. And if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'll move on to 5.2. I'm sure you're all aware of the ARPS dairy situation and their decision to get rid of their fluid milk packaging and distribution. And Defiance City Schools has been a long time customer of ARPS Dairy. And I received, before it was public release, I received a phone call from the owner, Lambert Vandermeeg, to inform us of the decision to get rid of their fluid milk. And he said that he had reached out to another vendor that he had done business with, Custer Dairy out of Canada, Michigan, who is in the milk business, cheese business, ice cream business, you name it business. They have quite a variety of products that they provide. And they are in the school milk business as well in Michigan, Indiana, and in Northwest Ohio. They're willing to, and not willing to, ARPS agreed, they agreed with ARPS to take over our milk for the remainder of ARPS contract at the same price. Now, if you look at my little notes that I provided you there in public content, you'll see some chicken scratch next to the prices that they provided to us. When we signed the contract with ARPS in July rather, those were the Federal Milk Market Administrator prices that they could charge. That changes every month. So our ARPS bill, our dairy provider's bill, changes based upon the rate that is set by the Federal Milk Market Administrator. I had no idea there was a Federal Milk Market Administrator, but now I do. But the Custer people reached out to us. They've had a long-standing decade run of business with ARPS. They are confident they can take us on and provide us the exact same service or better, he said. So I said, well, get your chance. So he believes they'll start delivering milk on Monday, March 10th to us. Okay? Sidebar, our ARPS driver was scheduled to retire in April. He said he's just going to retire a little earlier, which made us all feel a little better because he's been serving the school for a long time, a long time. So, any questions on the vendor change? Cheryl did send out a question because there's some federal funds on whether or not we have to bid this, and we don't know yet. So
We found out that because it was a change that we didn't initiate, we don't have to bid it this year, but we will next year.
Yeah, and we've already had I've had two vendors today actually contact me about how do they go about submitting this, and I wanted to say the ones that you didn't submit the last 2 years, did you same, because we've mailed these same companies the letters to submit bids for a number of years, so probably the same ones you mailed them to, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Item 5.3, a study abroad trip to Spain. If you look there, Ms. Gibson, one of our foreign language teachers, specifically in Spanish, approached Mr. Jerger about traveling to Spain. This would be in 2026. My chicken scratch handwriting that we had some trouble with the dates because when she had to get in and start doing this, we did not have an official school calendar. So if you look, it's tentatively scheduled for spring break of 2026. And then I put plus or minus 1 day. Whenever you travel to Europe, they'll typically probably leave on a Friday before school is out. and be gone the whole next week, or they'll leave on a Saturday and return the Monday that we would come back from school, and I was okay with that. The initial thought process was they potentially could miss 3 to 5 days, and once we got the calendar figured out. So once we have the concrete dates, which Jenna will initiate after approval tonight in the consent agenda, we'll get those back to you, okay?
Good.
Any questions on that?
I just had on the dates and you answered.
Very good. Administrative reports, Mr. Modes? Why does everybody look so tired and out? You guys act like you've had a long week. It's only Wednesday.
Let's we'll just go through the administrative reports real quick. If you guys want to do a brief synopsis of your reports, I'll start with Mrs. Steyer, since hers is the first one on my thing, and I have to turn twice to get it.
So we are continuing our discussion on improvement with the special education department. Our intervention specialists are still working on their case studies. We met with the elementary, they set up their case studies and their intervention plan. We did a mid-stream check with our middle school teachers to see how it was going, if they needed anything. And we looked at their data, and then tomorrow we're meeting with the high school.
Good.
Brief enough?
Brief enough, yep. Beth Lewis is next.
I just gave you updated preschool numbers. We have 118 currently enrolled, 7 of them are being served itinerantly. Next week, on Monday and Tuesday, our whole grade screening for gifted identification will be for 2nd grade. And wellness, I just wanted to do a plug. We are participating in Biggest Loser. It's fun. It gets staff kind of around. And also our donations for this month, we're going to the Path Center, especially with as cold as it's been. I just kind of want to give them a little plug for being around for our families in the community that need it.
Good. Thanks, Beth. Next, let's go to Mr. Mosier.
Yeah, that's just updated information, numbers on DALC students. The big thing on the in-school suspension data, I don't think put a 0 in for vaping.
I saw it on there. I wanted to say
Yeah, and
congratulations.
I think that's just, it's, hard work for the past 2 years on the Stronger Connections grant, focusing on vaping. A lot of work's done. Vaping detectors, administration did a good job, teachers staying on kids, in the kids,
I think educating the students is a
Yeah.
huge component. Good
Yeah,
job,
so,
Jacob.
yeah, really, really happy about that number. Yeah.
Awesome. That's
You
great.
might clean your whole
This is
place
how
out.
it's
with
like.
We're trying to get you out of a job.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Well, I think long-term, Mr. Moser is very secure.
For vaping, we're trying to get
Oh,
out of a job.
yeah.
How's that sound? So, we'll go on down to Mrs. Pfeiffer then, since
So we had our January PBIS Glow in the Dark reward party, and obviously you had a guest DJ. Did you happen to see who that was? Yeah, so one of our students, I said, he needs a DJ name. He goes, Glow Stick. Just, all business. I'm like, oh my gosh, I loved it. So they had a ball with that. We actually had that in Mrs. Long's music room, made it really, really dark. I'll come back to the student council, but the Random Acts of Kindness Week, it was kind of 2 weeks because of all the delays and cancellations and stuff like that. But they got to put their heart up on the wall if they got caught being good, and then they got prizes at the end, so that was fun. Student council sold Valentine brands, and they did really, really well. And so their next thing that they're selling is in honor of Pi Day, which is 3/14, and instead of Pi Day, it's going to be called Pied in the Face Day.
Oh.
And Mr. Morton, I have volunteered to be pied in the face.
I'll be there first in line.
And I'm challenging you.
How much money do you need me to raise for it?
Pied in the face.
Much
Not
money?
to pie me in the face, but to be pied in the face.
I
please
have a
contact
meeting
student
that
council.
day. I'm almost certain of an all-day meeting out of town.
Yeah.
So that should be fun.
Yes, it will. Please take pictures of that when you're sticking the pie in Mr. Morton's face. Matt, Mr. Carr.
We are finishing up benchmark state practice test this week, and then we will take a look at it as our BLT next Tuesday. We have a all-day meeting with that, so we'll take a look at that stuff on Tuesday. And then also just want to give a little shout out to our girls basketball teams in the 7th and 8th grade. 7th grade won the WBL this year. In girls basketball, they actually did it in volleyball too, so that's a good sign for them. And then our 8th grade were runners up. So just want to congratulate those two teams on a great winter sports season.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Gerber,
Just
high school.
two things real quick. We, on Tuesday, we had 165 juniors take the state ACT. Just give a shout out to the student council members that came in Monday night at 9 o'clock to help set up the tables. We had basketball practice at 4, then we had a middle school band concert at 7. So we had to set up about 100 and some tables Monday night. The kids took the test on Tuesday, 4 hours, and got them out of there at noon. And yesterday met with the Defiance Area Foundation. We are starting a new common app for the seniors and scholarships. So similar to when the seniors are filling out the common app for colleges, they fill out one profile, one application, and it gets distributed to this committee, and then they can decipher who gets what scholarship. So new things are happening.
Very good. Thanks.
I can't believe you're thinking of that already.
Next, how about Beth Hench? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, so we are coming off of our February 14th Professional Development Day, sent out a survey, received some results from that, and are learning on how we can improve going into our next PD day. Piggybacking off of what Mr. Carr said, doing a whole bunch of benchmark testing, preparing for our state tests. We have solid data, knowing that the benchmarks and studying them improves our state test score. So for me, it's getting to be spreadsheet season.
Fun. And Mr. Andrew Ecker for the technology.
Starting 2 projects at the elementary school. We're currently refreshing all Chromebooks 3 through 5. So there's about 600 Chromebooks over there now. We're in the midst of inventorying them and getting them on the network so we can distribute those out to the students before the school year is over. And we also are planning on replacing 50 smart boards in the elementary school. Most of those smart boards were put in with the building, so they're pushing 20 years old. And we work with maintenance the next week or two for them to install a couple to see how long it's going to take them, so we can work with the schedule on getting all these boards installed in all the regular classrooms to replace the very old and aging smart boards that are currently in the building.
Is there any trade-in value for the old ones? Is anybody want them?
Unfortunately, no. They all run off projectors. Again, they're 20 some odd years old, which nobody uses that kind of stuff anymore. So we'll keep a couple projectors around because there are some rooms we're not going to replace. We'll have some extra projectors, but the boards themselves have.
Well, we'll have to offer them for sale, any that are left.
Yeah.
And then if they're not bought, then we will use them and we'll dispose of the asset that has 0 value to us. Did I say that correctly? I've been listening.
I think that takes care of everybody, unless Mrs. Long has anything to say, since she's over there. Only one didn't get to speak.
Let's keep it that way, please. She's on the other team.
Argument for me.
And I do want to point out that Mrs. Pfeiffer, when you said point out one thing, she read the whole report.
What can I say? I got lots of stuff to say.
No, she was filling in because one was missing.
There, that's fair. I give you that. All right.
Other than that, any more in your report?
No, that is all I have for you this evening, Mr. Muggs.
Sounds good. I am going to, I guess if you guys would like to leave, you're more than welcome to, but it won't take us too much longer here. That's up to you guys. You're welcome to leave.
See, they're all staying now. You know why they're all staying? It's because I chastised them. And then, like, you get up and leave. That shows how you're. No, I haven't said a word to them. But they should all stay. All right.
We're going to move on to the consent agenda. I would like to say, Mrs. Steyer, congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
So
only 27.
So you will approve it. I was told earlier you weren't going to approve it. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Sherry, it was not a life sentence, but damn near a life sentence, right? So
Education,
congratulations.
34 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So what are you going to do now?
My husband and I are talking about working together.
Oops.
So we'll see.
I'll call Mike and tell him that I got it. I've got 19 years experience. I'll tell him what he to look for or not.
Other than that, does anybody have anything on the consent agenda that they would like to be removed? Seeing none, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Chris?
I'll second.
Charlie, any other discussion? I have a roll call.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Beagle,
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin,
Yes.
Mr. Moats.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. We'll move on down to old business. Anybody have any old business for the board tonight? Seeing none, how about moving on to new business? And quiet bunch tonight. And then I see we do have a need for executive session for number 5, matters to require to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or the state statute.
I'll make the motion.
Charlie, do you have a second?
Second.
Chris, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Moats.
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Beagle. Mr. Wall.
Yes.
45. And we're out. Thank you guys for staying.